Coming your way on today's San Francisco 49ers Report, ESPN NFL insider Jeremy Fowler dropped a really fascinating article on Friday. And within that article, and looking at the Niners quarterback situation going into 2023 and all of the questions around it, combined with the fact that the Niners have one of the most loaded rosters in the NFL, they're Super Bowl contenders with a really good coach, there are still relative unknowns at the most important position at quarterback. And in that article, he said a Trey Lance or Sam Darnold trade prior to the regular season, quote, can't be ruled out. Now, if a trade does happen of any player, if the Niners sign somebody to that roster, anytime a big story comes out, we cover it here on the 49ers Report because we do it for the faithful. That's why you got to subscribe to the show. As we just surpassed 82,000 subscribers, lock us in for daily content on San Francisco. So really, let's take a look at this article from a bird's eye view. A Lance or Darnold trade. Could it happen? ESPN's Jeremy Fowler wrote that article about the Niners quarterback situation. He detailed why the Niners liked Lance in the pre-draft process. They thought that he had this special blend of athleticism, mobility, running it, throwing it. They raved about his character. And a lot of those same things still ring true. Unfortunately for Lance, he's been injured with the finger and knee issue. He had the ankle injury last year, which Jeremy Fowler also talked about. And they went into last year fully anticipating Lance being their the team's starting quarterback. He gets hurt. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, who Jeremy Fowler talked about Garoppolo and saying that the Niners expected to trade him until there wasn't a market out there. And then Brock Purdy takes over, and he ends up exceeding all expectations. And originally, the Niners took Purdy to be an affordable backup. But the big nugget in that article is the one that we alluded to earlier. Jeremy Fowler, well-respected and well-trusted NFL insider, said that the 49ers could trade Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. Here's a direct snippet from that piece. If Purdy has no issues, trade rumors surrounding Lance and perhaps Darnold could bubble to the surface. The Niners took calls on Lance in the spring, but John Lynch maintained it would take something substantial for the Niners to deal him. Next up from Fowler, the parallels between this preseason and last are easy to see, only with Lance and Garoppolo's role now. Like Garoppolo then, Lance holds more value for the Niners than any other team because San Francisco has needed multiple capable quarterbacks in each of the past 3 years. And with the NFL rule change allowing teams to carry 3 quarterbacks on the game day roster, the Niners will be more inclined to keep their trio around still. A training camp trade can't be ruled out, especially if another team has an injury that creates quarterback desperation. We've talked about this all offseason, that if San Francisco is blown away by an offer for Lance, they shopped him in the spring, they weren't blown away by an offer, that's why he's still on the team. Or Sam Darnold, who they signed to a 1-year contract, they might think about moving those players if the return on investment makes sense. Now, the Niners' 2023 quarterback cap hits in that quarterback room. Brock Purdy, this is why he's such a great value player, because he's barely making anything. And if he gets better than he was last year, look at the value that you get. Less than $900,000 on that cap hit this upcoming season. Trey Lance, on the other hand, because he was selected number 3 overall in 2021, a $9.3 million cap hit. Sam Darnold signed that 1-year, $4.5 million deal, incentive-laden. His cap hit, $5 million. So if you can move off that money and use that money elsewhere, San Francisco might do it. More from Jeremy Fowler here. Before any of that can happen, though, the Niners must be certain Purdy is ready to go and can play at or above the level he reached last year. Until then, Lance and Darnold will compete for the backup job behind him while making the case that they could be more than a number 2 if needed. Kyle Shanahan is clearly very high on Brock Purdy, and the Niners quarterback situation and the future at that position really does come down to, and it's predicated by the health of Purdy. He's been able to throw the ball with velocity, been able to display the same arm strength that he had last year. No limitations up to this point. And Shanahan, with what he saw on film last year, how Purdy performed as a rookie, thrown into the fire and thrust into a massive role for San Francisco, leading this team on that hot winning streak to end the season, he impressed a lot of people. And that's why Kyle Shanahan said, quote, Brock is the real deal. Your question's coming up here in just a moment, but first, can the Niners win the Super Bowl with this current quarterback situation? Right tackle, quarterback, two massively important positions, two big question marks for the Niners. W for yes, they can win it. L for lose, let us know. This NFL Jam shirt is incredibly awesome, and they've been going off the shelves. A lot of people have been using our link down below because this shirt of Steve Young, Jerry Rice with the NBA Jam kind of mock-up is awesome. And it's on sale right now at chatsports.com/49ersjam. You have to use that link for that deal to apply. And if you don't like the shirt, you can still use that link, and you can find a lot of really good deals on our Fanatics site. It's chatsports.com/49ersjam. Let's start to take your questions here. Adrian Avila, what do you think about the Elijah Mitchell injury? Do you think the Niners should let him go since he is so injury prone? So I've discussed this a little bit throughout this offseason because of the emergence of Jordan Mason, having a good camp, back in OTAs. He was flashing some pass-catching ability. If he plays well, and then San Francisco is raving about Ty Davis-Price, and Elijah Mitchell continues to get hurt, and the Niners at a position where you can find really good players, and a Kalon Laybourne, the UDFA, decides to step up, like he's been having a pretty good camp, and Mitchell isn't available, San Francisco could use a roster spot elsewhere, and they could decide to keep another player at a position that they value a little bit more than running back because they understand it's easy to pluck and find good running backs. So Elijah Mitchell's 53-man roster spot, I don't think is guaranteed right now because he continues to get hurt. I'm not saying he's not a good player. Elijah Mitchell is a really good player, and when he's been on the field, incredibly productive. He's a great scheme fit, a great find in the draft 2 years ago. But again, can't make the club from the top. 727 Steve D. Fred Warner said he was worried about Brock Purdy being good because he had been practicing against the #1 defense in the league. So would that be helpful to Lance or Darnold as well? I think in training camp, you see Lance and Darnold making adjustments, and you've seen them improve a little bit. No better numbers than this, which I think is pretty telling, that 49ers quarterbacks combined in 2023 camp, going up against this Niners defense, which the first-team defense is good, the second-team defense is also really good. The first 3 practices combined, the quarterbacks had a completion percentage up until Friday, or after Friday, 47.6%. The next 5 practices, 72.4%. So they're able to see and adjust. They're able to go up against stiff and elite levels of competition. Lance has gotten first-team reps. Darnold has gotten first-team reps. Purdy, obviously, when he's on the field, gets all of the first-team reps. Given what he did last year, it's understandable to see why the Niners have trust in him. But yeah, it certainly helps Lance and Darnold going up against the defensive mind that is Steve Wilks and this difficult system, but all of the talent on that side of the ball. 727 Steve D. clearly knows ball. BV50, will Trey Lance be on the Niners all season? I think that he will, but it will not surprise me one iota if Trey Lance does get traded. And for some of the reasons that I talked about a little bit earlier, $9+ million cap hit in 2023. If San Francisco, from a quarterback-needy team, let's say Desmond Ridder shits the bed, he pisses down his leg, and he sucks, right? Like, the Falcons could give up a 2nd or 3rd round pick, especially if Arthur Smith is feeling the heat, and he knows, look, my job is in jeopardy if I don't find a quarterback. Let me find a quarterback because I think he's a good coach. He's had instability at quarterback with all of the instability there. Marcus Mariota was really bad last year. So could they trade a 3rd round pick for Lance? If the Niners got that, we know that they value day 2 picks, day 3 picks. They could decide to do that. Sin City, what do you think the final number for Bosa will be on his contract? Chip, can you pop up the Aaron Donald contract graphic that we have in the system here? Because this is a good indicator for what Nick Bosa might be able to make with his contract. And Sin City, I certainly appreciate that question. This is what the Aaron Donald deal was. Originally, he signed a 3-year, $95 million contract, $31.5 million, 95 guaranteed. I think that Nick Bosa's deal is going to be more years, let's say 5. I think the guaranteed money could be around 100. I think the average annual value will be between 32 and 35, and then in turn the guaranteed money is able to go up as well. And Bosa has earned that. I know a lot of people are going to get really concerned about that, but keep in mind also that the salary cap is going to continue to increase. And if Bosa continues to develop at this level, and he continues to sack the quarterback like he's done the last 2 years and in year 1 as a rookie, it's the most important position, in my opinion, outside of quarterback and maybe offensive tackle. You invest in that position, especially with a generational player who's a potential future Hall of Famer in Nick Bosa. Boatswain Boogie, during our live show, sent us in that super chat. We appreciate you, Brody. If Brandon Ayuk breaks out this year, do we trade Debo? That is possible. The money that the Niners would have to eat this year if they traded Debo this offseason, and we talked about that a couple of times, would be a lot. Next year, though, that changes. I would love to see the Niners hold on to Debo and hold on to Ayuk, but let's just put on our general manager hat. Brandon Ayuk, and this is just an honest statement here, is a better all-around wide receiver and traditional wide receiver than Debo Samuel. Can you get a player like Debo who can line up at running back and he can pick up yards after the catch? You could find those players a little bit easier than a true prototypical outside wide receiver like Brandon Ayuk. And let's also say that Debo in 2023 has a season like he did 2 years ago when he was an All-Pro in 2021. If his value is at its highest and the Niners can get some really good value back, that too would not surprise me. As a business, you have to think about these things. And sometimes you have to get aggressive and take risks. I want to see them both on the field because I like them both and they're both special players, but you have to keep those things in mind. Evan Hinders, what's good, brother? Should the Niners bring in another wide receiver? I don't think so. Danny Gray having a pretty good camp. Chris Conley having a pretty good camp as well. And then in front of those guys, you have Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings. After that, Danny Gray, you have Chris Conley, and I don't look at Ray McCloud as like a traditional wide receiver. He's going to make this team because he's one of the best special team returners in the NFL, but he is at wide receiver. So that's another wide receiver you have to have on that team. I think San Francisco is pretty set there. Thanks to everybody who chimed in and who asked us questions here on the show. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I want to round out the show with this. It's a Faithful Freaky Friday here on the program. What is everybody doing this weekend? Let me know down in the comment section.